Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be my review of the upcoming Summon Showcase, A Voracious Visitor, which will debut alongside our Princess Connect Redive collaboration event of the same name. These will come out tomorrow, November 30th at the time I'm recording this, and the banner will last for about a week or so until December 6th. On this new banner, we're going to have two brand new 5-star adventurers with an appearance rate up, Pecorine, a light sword, and Forager Mitsuba, a wind blade. We also have a new 5-star dragon of the light element with an appearance rate up called Lumiere Pandora. Important to note here, nothing on this showcase is limited time or seasonal or exclusive to the collab, so everything here should be part of the permanent pool going forward. And presumably that also means that they'll be available for stuff like dream summons in the future. And also important to note, and pertinent to the showcase, if you're wondering why Forager Cleo isn't here, it's because she has been confirmed to be a free unit. She's going to be the welfare unit for the raid event, so if you're just interested in Cleo, you can get her for free and build up a friendship with her just by playing the event, and you don't need to spend your Wormite or other summoning resources going for this showcase. Now, let's start off by trying to answer the question of whether or not you should summon. I think this is a pretty clear skip. A lot of you may have gone for Gala Leonidas, in which case you may have no other alternative but to skip, but at the very least, it's a wait and see, because oddly, the showcase only lasts a week and the collaboration lasts about 2 weeks. So you have to wonder what the next showcase is going to be after this one. You're probably going to want that information before you make a decision on whether or not to summon, especially if there happen to be some other alts in the showcase, in the event rather, that might get an appearance on the next Summon Showcase. I don't think that's very likely. I feel like we might already know that if that were the case, but having said that, I do think it's possible. And at the very least, you know, between December 7th and maybe the halfway point of the month, the 14th, who knows what type of filler banner we're going to have. It could be something fairly lucrative, and if nothing else, on the 15th we'll probably have our Gala remix, and perhaps they'll do what they did in the month of October with our Halloween units appearing on the remix. Maybe this month's Gala remix will have our Dragon Yule or Christmas units, and that will be your one chance to get them. So there are a lot of reasons to be cautious on the showcase and to wait and try to find out more, but also I just don't think anything here is particularly influential from a gameplay standpoint. I don't think any of this is going to let you crack open or clear content in new ways. Maybe Pecorine could have some applications in like Tartarus Auto, but it's so unfriendly of a fight toward Auto that I really strongly encourage just trying to do that in co-op, and in co-op that tends to be dominated by Karina, who's not even of the light element. So in my opinion, when I look at this, it's going to be hard for Pecorine to really find an immediate home. Maybe by the time Legend Tartarus comes out, sure, perhaps she'll be lucrative for that. Same deal with Forager Mitsuba. There's just not a lot of slots in the auto comps for Ciela. Not a lot of players are doing that in co-op to begin with. And even in co-op, you want a certain amount of characters to enhance the team's survival, just because otherwise, in longer co-op runs, you can be a little bit at risk to accidentally die to stuff like bolts from above or arrows. Forager Mitsuba doesn't seem to address many of the issues that are present in that fight. Maybe when Legend Ciela comes around, she'll be relevant, but at a glance, I don't think anything here is particularly relevant from a gameplay standpoint. I would say Gala Leonidas probably still a little bit more meta impactful, or at least has the potential to be meta impactful. Not for co-op, but right now for solo Legend Volky is pretty good for that. Alright, so the other wrinkle on the showcase is that it's a prize showcase. Now for me, as somebody who is just a huge Mitsuba fan and was planning on summoning on this anyway, this was just a great bit of information to hear. Like, prize showcases are at their best if you want to summon for the characters and you treat the prizes as an added bonus. All of a sudden, if I have to go to 300 summons to get Mitsuba, I'm probably not going to feel as bad because at least I'm going to get potentially some decent prizes along the way. Having said that, I don't think prizes currently after version 2.0 are really a reason to go all in or summon on a showcase. yes, the prizes are good. If you get the platinum prize, it's excellent. The gold prize, you have an opportunity for Champion's Testament, which are always much needed, as well as some other goodies. But when you start to get to silver and then bronze, things really drop off, and they're very diluted compared to what prize showcases were, the one that we had pre 2.0. And if you notice here, when you do a tenfold summon, when you perform a tenfold summon, the 10th prize is guaranteed to be either platinum, gold, silver, or bronze. So you're not even guaranteed to get a silver in a tenfold. And for that reason, I think you shouldn't treat the prizes as really much of a factor at all in whether or not you should pull on this. I think ultimately it's just an added bonus if you do decide to pull, rather than enough of an incentive to actually get you to pull. And with that out of the way, I think that a lot of you are probably going to skip on the Summon Showcase, particularly with Princess Connect not being super well known in the West compared to in Japan. But let's talk about the specific characters that are available here, since I am still curious just to read through their kits and kind of figure out a little bit more about what they do, and also to see how well they represented Pecorine, for example, based on what I know of her from the anime. So first of all, love the portrait. You can see the 4 main characters from Princess Connect here. You have Kiaru or Carol on the left, you have Kokoro on the right. Apparently Kokoro shares a Japanese voice actress with Mitsuba, which is kind of cool. I like that little nod in this event. And then in the back you have Yuki. And she has her line in English. They even gave her like official dub, I guess, for this in the trailer, the English trailer that was posted on YouTube, which apparently is like the first time that Pecorine has had voice lines in English, raising some hopes that maybe they'll add Princess Connect or localize Princess Connect and add it and bring it to the West. But she says, "Hey, I'm the perpetually peckish Pecorine," and she's the leader of a group called the Gourmet Guild, who hails from the continent of Astrea. She is known far and wide for her ravenous appetite, and coming to another world has done nothing to dampen her hunger. From what I understand, it has something to do with her sword, like this sword grants her incredible power but makes her hungry. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that, but that is, I think, what I've been told or read in the comments before, so I'm operating off that principle at this point. Hopefully, we have a skin of her sword as part of the event. That'd be cool. Her skills are Princess Strike, which is shareable, and Lunchtime. They do kind of work together through her first ability, Perpetually Peckish Pecorine 2, which is quite the name. But we'll just start reading through this sort of linearly, and then we'll circle back as needed. Princess Strike deals light damage to enemies directly ahead and reduces shadow damage taken by the user by 10% for 10 seconds. This damage reduction effect will not stack. If this skill is used after the user's Gourmand gauge has filled, a variant called Princess Valiance will be used instead. Princess Valiance deals light damage to enemies directly ahead and increases the user's strength by 40% for 5 seconds. Not a very long duration strength buff. Once the Gourmand's gauge is depleted, this skill will revert to its initial effect. So not a very long duration strength buff, but my hope with this is that this is a very low SP cost skill, so you could potentially spam it multiple times within the duration of the Gourmand gauge. But the variant, well, let's just read the Gourmand gauge so we kind of know what's up. This is on her first ability. Grants her Gourmand gauge. The Gourmand gauge fills when the user's second skill is used. When the gauge is completely filled, it grants the user a unique Force Strike and begins to gradually deplete, so it depletes on its own. The user's second skill will not fill the Gourmand gauge while it is being depleted, and once it is depleted, the user's Force Strike will revert to its initial effect. Interesting, so once you activate your Gourmand mode, your Princess Strike becomes Princess Valiant. It's going to give you a strong strength buff. Probably within 5 seconds, I would imagine that your follow-up to that strength buff is to use her enhanced Force Strike, since it seems kind of unlikely you'd be able to cram in a lot of other powerful damage-dealing stuff within only 5 second span. And because the Gourmand gauge depletes over time, this all sort of makes sense. You know, it's not like using Princess Valiance depletes it just depletes automatically over time. So interesting, in outside of your Gourmand gauge, it kind of gives you a defensive effect, and then within it, you get a powerful strength buff, but very short duration. Her second skill plays into this, so Lunchtime, this is the one that's going to fill up the Gourmand gauge before it starts depleting, before it's totally full and then starts depleting. increases the user's defense by 15% for 15 seconds, restores HP to the user, and partially fills the user's Gourmand gauge. I kind of like that. I imagine this might have a high SP cost, skills like this usually do, but as a sword unit, you can generate SP pretty quickly, so if this is fairly cheap to cast, I could see this being very, very fun and enjoyable. Like, swords vary a lot, right? There's Naveed, for example, his second skill, super cheap to use. You can spam it relatively quickly. And there are other swords, like let's say Odetta, where her second skill, it heals an area of effect around her and grants a strength buff. It's a lot slower to charge up. So it sort of depends how they cost this. Like, Naveed's gives a defense buff but no healing, and it's cheap. And this only heals the user, so I could see this being sort of cheap or medium as far as the cost. And, depending on how many times you have to use this to fill up the Gourmand gauge, if you have to use it, let's say, twice or 3 times, that's not too bad if you could spam it relatively quickly. Also gives her some potential as far as double buff interactions in her kit, since she has a consistent way to buff her own defense, and gives her just some tankiness, some survival. So there's a possibility she could fit into some auto comps just because she can heal herself. Having said that, with Tartarus, it's tougher to crack than just that. It's not even just about the healing, because in the first phase you can't really heal until you enter a portal. So I don't think this would put her over the top or anything, but this is a pretty cool type of skill, and I think represents her character pretty well. For co-abilities, it's kind of basic. Just a really simple chain co-ability that's kind of medium, and Dragon Haste as a co-ability. These are not competitive in the light element. Neither of these are like... You can do better, basically, than both of these in the light element. Her abilities are, as mentioned, Perpetually Peckish Pecorine 2, Curse Res 100%, and then Food is the Source of All Life, Star 2. So they went really ambitious with the ability names here, with the length of the text, and even adding some symbols in there. But that last ability, her strength is increased by 20% for 10 seconds. When her HP is restored after activating, it won't activate again for 20 seconds. So there's a cooldown time. You shouldn't be able to overlap this, I don't think, because you only get a 10-second buff to your strength, and then you have to wait another 10 seconds before you can activate this again. Decent, you could get it through lunchtime, so it works. She's self-contained and cohesive. I suppose you could get it through other means as well, like a healer on your team, but my hope is that you could use lunchtime fast enough that you're mainly able to keep it up just by using lunchtime. Yeah, Pecorine seems like a fun character to play. I could also see Princess Strike and particular Princess Valiance having absurd mods. Pecorine in the anime just seems to have like an extremely high potential for whenever she does an attack, it's like way over the top. Princess Strike has an awesome animation in the anime, but she also just seems very oblivious and like unaware of what's going on around her. So yeah, I could see them putting a really high damage mod on this, and probably going to be pretty good, but also nothing here that's like, oh, this would be a game changer. Like maybe if there's some motion to this or something, like there's ways to get into the portal, like there's some potential here that's unstated. Obviously, with us not knowing the SP costs and the mods this time around when I'm recording, there's certainly potential, but there's nothing that's like, other than just good damage, I don't really see anything here that's like busted. It is a little bit interesting, when you talk about self-sustain, like one of the strongest characters in Dragalia right now is Karina. One of the great things about Karina is that she can buff her own defense, give herself a nice healing double buff, but a big part of what makes her great as well is that she has 100% skill prep on her ability slots, so she doesn't have to use Wormfront slots on that. She also scales, her first skill scales in damage based on how many buffs she has. That leads to extremely explosive damage, and that's not something that you see at face value here for Pecorine. Like, she doesn't have that same potential to scale, at least not that's apparent. Maybe Princess Valiance just has busted mods and she does scale, but like one of the things when you sort of look at her, some of the properties are there for a good tanky character. Like maybe you could do 3 Karina, 1 Pecorine runs or something, but I just don't really see that happening with it being so much easier for folks to just filter for water acts. Like, it's even hard to find a room with regular Mitsuba, and water Mitsuba tends to speed up all Karina runs a little bit if you have 1 Mitsuba in there. So yeah, I'm not that optimistic for Pecorine's future, at least right now. Okay, let's talk about Forager Mitsuba. The crisp, sweet air, the tasty food. I am going to master outdoor cooking. And you can see Pecorine as well as Forager Cleo in the artwork. Love it. Love the outfit. Very different take for Mitsuba. Very picnicker vibe. Like if she was a Pokemon trainer, she would be a picnicker, I guess. But, now there are more recent generations of Pokemon. Like there's probably some other trainer type I'm not thinking of. But I'm digging it. I'm going to summon for her. Was not expecting a Windblade. A young woman who hails from Hinamoto and has come to study local Iberian cuisine. She learned the potential of outdoor cooking after trying it with friends and now plans to use it, so she might return the family restaurant to glory. So as for Mitsuba, her first skill is Fiend Ikejime. It's shareable with the cost of 6, deals wind damage to the target and nearby enemies, and inflicts bleeding. So another wind blade that causes bleeding. There's quite a few wind blades at this point. I guess I should have talked about the light swords with Pecorine as well. There's quite a few of those, with Gala Yuden being one of the more prominent ones. But let's talk about the wind blades as far as Mitsuba goes. So Addis and Victor can both cause bleeding already. Victor, after 2.0, is pretty strong. He's stronger than Addis, yet you still don't really see either of them around as far as master difficulty or really even expert difficulty of Ciela, and neither of them are particularly useful in the auto comps. Then you have Tobias. Tobias is in a separate category in a sense because he is a pure buff bot. He has the buff time co-ability, which is unique to him. He is used in expert difficulty. He runs Freya most of the time and is a source of healing for the team in 4 DPS runs. Less used in Master difficulty, from what I can tell, but I really haven't played a lot of Master Ciela with it being fully autoable and also just not having a great amount of rupees, even if I got the materials from that fight to make the weapons. But Tobias plays in a different space. Melody kind of plays into a similar space as Tobias, primarily being focused on buffing. And then we have Musashi. Musashi being a little better after 2.0, but still not all that great. So Forager Mitsuba enters a pretty saturated wind blade field, I would say, and there are a lot of other roles occupied in that field, like Tobias and Melody doing very different things than Addis and Victor are. So with that being said, I think that Forager Mitsuba causing bleeding just like Addis and Victor, I mean, right now that doesn't have a spot. Not only, so let's talk about solo and co-op separately. So for co-op, not only are those types of characters just not really present, but Ciela has some mechanics that discourage using bleed. Her Mist Veil removes all debuffs on her, and bleed counts as a debuff. So Mist Veil just feels like a time waster mechanic to me, but it does have that type of mechanical implication on characters like Forager Mitsuba and the like. So that is one disincentive to try using bleed. For solo, your comps are tight enough with you probably wanting Templar Hope, either Grace or Lowen, and then probably Ronsel and Silas, or otherwise some type of Axe and Lance, that I just don't see Mitsuba easily fitting into those types of comps, especially if you're trying to run them with 1 or more gold Fafnirs. It gets all the tighter to be able to survive consistently. So unfortunately, I feel like on both ends, Mitsuba's not really going to have a home for a while. Her Fiend Banquet is interesting, so let's read over that one. It grants her a new dish for every 15 hit combo and creates a buff zone that surrounds her for 15 seconds. The buff zone effects will be based on the number of new dishes the user has, up to a maximum of 3. 1, increase skill damage by 10%, 2, skill damage 10%, critical rate 10%, and 3, skill damage 10%, critical rate 10%, and strength 5%. This skill can only be used when the user has at least one new dish, and using it will consume all new dishes. So this is very odd as far as a skill, in that it has a property. Like, this is kind of like an ability. It has a passive property as well as an active skill. The way I understand this is that every time you do a 15-hit combo, you're getting a new dish. But when you do a 15-hit combo, this skill will light up. You don't have to use it, I don't think. So you could wait to a 45-hit combo total and then use it. Whenever you do use it, you're going to lose all of your new dishes. That's how I read this. I don't think that this passively creates buff zones around you. But I do think you have the option when you create a buff zone, do you want to create it as soon as you have one new dish, or do you want to wait for 2 or 3? It's also possible that when this actually plays out, that this has its own SP cost that's not tied to the number of new dishes you have. If that's the case, then it might just sync up to where 45 hits is around when you can charge this once. Or maybe 30 hits will be around when you can charge this once, so the default is kind of like 2. Yeah, this seems okay. These are not substantial buffs, in my opinion, on a second skill. And blades don't exactly build combo quickly. There may be something unspoken here about Mitsuba having her own stances, or like her own weapon style, similar to the first Mitsuba, because a regular blade is just not going to be... It can keep a combo if you have the Agito weapons, but like, if, for a 45 hit combo to get this small of a buff, that's not a very significant buff at all, I think. So I feel like there's probably something else going on with Mitsuba, or unfortunately she doesn't seem to be particularly strong. Like, I'm looking at this here and I'm reminded of Halloween Melsa, who, while very adorable and a great Halloween character, just wasn't really that strong or powerful. Her co-ability is strength, so in the realm of Victor and Addis, and not in the realm of Tobias, who stands alone with his co-ability. Her chain co-ability kind of unremarkable, but water res at an easy to maintain HP 80% for the most part. And then bleeding equals user strength plus 10%, freeze res 100%, chef savvy 2. So let's start with the bleeding equals user strength. It has a 5-second cooldown. This is okay. These user strength abilities have not usually been very good. I don't think that there's one that comes to mind as being particularly exceptional on any character. This is generally not that good of an ability. 10% strength buff whenever you use your first skill is kind of insignificant in the face of Agito weapons that give like huge permanent strength buffs that don't have a time limit. So to me, this is kind of a lackluster ability. Like, I would rather see 35% skill damage or something. I think that would probably be better. But maybe if her first skill just charges really fast, that could work out well for her. Having said that, like, you can only stack bleed 3 times, so if it charges really fast, you're gonna overcap bleed. So I don't really see a lot of potential with this ability. Same with Freeze Res. Pretty hard to argue that it's better than Bog Res and Ciela. And then Chef Savvy 2, using Fiend Banquet, grants the user the Plucked Mandrish effect. When this effect is active, the user's skill gauge fill rate will be increased by 15%. So that's good to see. So you could charge up your skills faster, and it's not a time-limited buff. And their next Force Strike will inflict poison. The effect cannot stack and will be consumed on use. So as far as Mitsuba redemption here, and this Mitsuba not being all that strong from a meta standpoint doesn't take away from the fact that the original Mitsuba is insane with her inspiration. Like, they didn't put inspiration on this one, probably for good reason, because inspired bleeding would be spicy. But this at least kind of may have some potential. Like, maybe this poison will last 30 seconds or something. If it lasts 15, well, you're only getting this when you use your second skill. That doesn't seem particularly good. And also when you use your Force Strike, then you lose your skill gauge fill rate buff, so it seems like you kind of don't want to use your Force Strike until you're going to cast your second skill, and then you use your Force Strike. Yeah, Mitsuba, I don't know. I'm very apprehensive. I'm sorry to say. I really want to summon Mitsuba, but like, and from an auto standpoint, like a lot is also going on here that I can't really see this being particularly good. As unfortunate as it is, like maybe the Gala Wind Dragon that comes out whenever will turn this around and like somehow synergize super well with Forager Mitsuba. But as of now, I'm not really seeing it. Maybe she'll just have really good damage modifiers also, but like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about this. It seems to me that Victor, as of now, still has a lot more utility than she does with his water res and knockback immunity. Knockback immunity isn't something you always want to have for auto, but like, it's something. It sort of merits some consideration in harder difficulty solos, for example, like Legend Cielo when that comes out, or harder difficulty co-op like Legend Cielo, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure on Mitsuba here. Okay, last up on the Summon Showcase, we have Lumiere Pandora. I'm going to open my Box of Hope and spread happiness to everyone. A dragon who bears the Box of Hope, which has the power to better the world through spreading an abundance of blessings. She loves nothing more than spending time with her twin sister, who carries the Box of Calamity. Okay, interesting lore. Her skill is Burst of Happiness, increases the user's strength by 25% and critical rate by 15% for 15 seconds. Seems okay, but not particularly remarkable when you have other light dragons like Daikokuten creates a busted buff zone, and even Cupid gives team critical rate. I think she's better than Cupid, but like, this seems like a sort of insignificant buff, only 25% strength to the user. Doesn't seem to be very significant, only 15 seconds as well. But then her ability, Light Emissary of the Box of Hope 5, another mouthful. If the user is attuned to light, increases strength by 20% for every Joyful Radiance stack the user has. The user will be granted 4 Joyful Radiance stacks at the start of new quests, and they will be granted an additional stack every time their strength, defense, elemental resistance, critical rate, critical damage, energy level, or inspiration level is increased by one of their own skills. So essentially, if you can buff yourself through a skill, you're going to get an additional stack of Joyful Radiance. But Joyful Radiance can stack only up to 4 times, which is what it starts off as, and 1 stack is consumed every 20 seconds. So essentially, this is an 80% strength light dragon in the permanent pool, unlike Daikokuten and Gala Thor. I think that's really the whole purpose of this dragon, is just to be permanently available. I don't think it's stronger than either of them. It's a dragon you have to work for to maintain that 80% strength. Every 20 seconds, you need to make sure that you have some type of self-buff going on. And it even says a self-buff through one of their own skills. So say you're Gala Luca, and you're getting a self-buff off of your ability. Presumably, based on how that's worded, it wouldn't count for this. Only a buff from a skill would actually count. So for Pecorine, probably okay, because she can buff her own elemental resistance, she can buff her own defense, she can buff her own strength, so she has ways to make this work. Presumably chain co-ability stuff doesn't work on this because that's not a skill. So anything that's an ability I think wouldn't work with it being worded around the skills. When you use Burst of Happiness, you get 2, so maybe that means you get 2 Joyful Radiance stacks back if you had lost them. But in general, this dragon just seems to be a lot more hoops to jump through than Daikokuten or Gala Thor. Perhaps for some characters who can't easily maintain combo, then you want to look at a dragon like this, but I don't really see a whole lot of action for Lumiere Pandora. And Gala Thor's main weakness is if you're getting afflicted a lot, you can't build up energy stacks. If that were the case, then maybe like some character that gets afflicted and can't keep combo, then like maybe this is the third best, or like becomes their best dragon and is otherwise the third best light dragon. Even Corsaint Phoenix seems a little bit more attractive to me than this dragon. So yeah, Lumiere Pandora I don't think is really a reason to summon here either. So all that to say, like, to me, looking at the showcase, I do think Pecorine probably has the most potential but nothing here strikes me as a must-have, particularly right now. Harder to predict, of course, what's going to happen with Legend Tartarus and Legend Ciela. Those may be very difficult, just as Legend Volk has proven to be pretty difficult in co-op, with a lot of players not having gotten their first clear, and in my anticipation, a lot of players just may not get their first clear for like several weeks, if not a month, because of the difficulty level, unless you're using really specific comps to try speed things up. I do think if they would have closed the loophole in the Legend difficulty of being able to use off-element dragons and off-element shared skills, we'd be looking at almost no clears, like very few clears with people who have high levels of weapon bonuses or a high level of commitment to learn the fight. With the Legend difficulty having off-element dragons available and off-element weapon skills, or shared skills rather, available, I think it's easy to break open a lot more than it would be otherwise. So for that reason, you know, I don't know. I don't know what that says about the Legend Volk balance, and like if they'll correct that with Legend Kai and future fights. I don't think it's necessarily all that likely, but as of now, I'm not really seeing it for this banner, so I'm going in for Mitsuba. I hope I get her relatively early so I could save up for the rest of the month. I do really want to pull her nevertheless, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I didn't expect the first Mitsuba to explode in popularity and usefulness in the way that she did, so maybe I will be pleasantly surprised here, and maybe her bleed modifier is just insane or something. But if nothing else, I just want to get her and read her story and have her in my collection. So that is my take on this banner for our Princess Connect Redive, A Voracious Visitor collaboration. Thank you as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the Summon Showcase. Otherwise, everyone, take care, and I'll see you next time.